After I caught my wife's cheating, I engineered total revenge, moved the money, exposed the affair, and left her with debt, scandal, and nothing. One, Liz said with a smile that felt off. That was 3 days before the company party, and if I had known what it meant, maybe I would have saved myself from what came next. My name is Albert Brown. I'm 46 years old, a successful account manager for a large manufacturing firm. I've been married to Liz for 25 years. High school sweethearts, best friends since 4th grade. We built a life together, one that anyone would call the American dream, a big house by Lake Arlington, a daughter we adore, and financial stability most can only dream of. But let's go back. Liz, whose full name is Elizabeth, works in graphic design at a prestigious advertising agency. Even after all these years, she still knows how to turn heads. Blonde hair, striking blue eyes, a figure that somehow defies time. She's always been the kind of woman who walks into a room and makes people notice. And me? I was proud of that, proud that she was mine, or at least I thought she was. We grew up on the same street in Fort Worth, Texas. By the time we hit senior prom, we were inseparable. We went to the University of Texas together, shared a tiny one-bedroom apartment, and made it work despite being broke college kids. Those were the good times, the kind that make you think you're invincible. We laughed about how we already knew how to live together even before marriage. Fast forward, we got married right out of college and had Maria a few years later. Maria, our only child, is 21 now, in college at the University of Oklahoma. She's engaged to William, a solid guy from a wealthy family who treats her like gold. Honestly, we couldn't have asked for a better match. Life was, at least from the outside, damn near perfect. Financially, we were more than fine. Liz earned 6 figures at her agency, and my salary as an account manager clears $500,000 annually. About 15 years ago, we bought a foreclosure property near the lake for $350,000 in cash, fixed it up ourselves, and turned it into a dream home. Today, it's worth over $2 million. Between that and our retirement funds, we were sitting pretty comfortably. That comfort made what happened even harder to see coming. For years, Liz and I had a routine. We ate breakfast together every morning, talked about our days at night, and made time for date nights when we could. It felt stable. She would tell me about work, her coworkers, and her deadlines, and I would share my wins and stresses from managing multi-million-dollar accounts. Nothing extraordinary, but it worked, or so I thought. Now, looking back, there were small cracks, tiny moments where she seemed distracted or too tired to talk about her day. But I brushed them off. I trusted her completely. We had 25 years of marriage and a lifetime of memories. She wasn't just my wife. She was my partner, my teammate. That's why, when she casually mentioned the company party and gave me an easy out, telling me I didn't need to come, I didn't think much of it at first. But then she brought it up again and again, each time her words kind but the message clear. Albert, you don't have to go. Something was off, and for the first time in years I felt it. That was the start. That party invitation, that dismissive suggestion, it was the spark that lit the match. I didn't know it then, but everything I thought I knew about my life was about to be tested. Saturday night came and I was determined to go to that party. Liz looked stunning more than usual. She wore a tight black dress that hugged every curve, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, and her blue eyes seemed brighter than ever. She always knew how to dress for a crowd, but tonight it felt calculated, like she was putting on a show. We arrived at the venue, and the first thing I noticed was how everyone seemed to know her. I mean, Liz is charming. She's always been the social butterfly between the two of us. But there was something different about the way people looked at her tonight. Polite smiles that lingered a second too long, glances exchanged that felt loaded with meaning. And then there was him. Before I could even ask her where we should start, a man, probably in his early 50s, gray-haired but fit, walked straight up to her. His confidence was unsettling. Liz smiled warmly and extended her hand to him, a gesture that felt intimate, like this wasn't just some colleague. She turned to me quickly, planted a kiss on my cheek, and introduced him as Chad Smith, one of her advertising sales reps. Chad. The name stuck in my mind like a splinter. I tried to be polite, but something about him rubbed me the wrong way. His smile was too easy, his laugh too rehearsed, and the way he looked at Liz, it wasn't professional. We spent the next hour mingling, having drinks, but I stayed sober. I told Liz I was driving, but the truth was I needed to keep my head clear. I started paying attention to every little thing, how often Liz glanced in Chad's direction, how close they stood when they talked, the subtle touches on her arm that lasted a second too long. It got worse when we hit the dance floor. Liz and I had always enjoyed dancing together, but that night, she seemed distracted. Every time I spun her, her eyes darted across the room. I followed her gaze, and there he was, Chad, standing at the edge of the floor, watching us with a smug grin. I swear the man was daring me to react. The breaking point came when we sat down at our table to rest. Chad walked right up to us, looked past me as if I didn't exist, and asked Liz to dance. The arrogance of it boiled my blood. Liz must have sensed how close I was to losing it because she smiled sweetly at him and said, "All my dances are reserved for my husband." For a moment I felt relief, but the flash of anger in Chad's eyes told me this was far from over. Later, Liz went to the bar to grab another drink. I watched her from a distance, my nerves on edge. That's when I saw Chad approach her again. This time, their conversation was quieter, more intense. Liz looked at him with a pleading expression, her lips moving just enough for me to read them. She said, "I'm sorry, darling." That was it. I stood there frozen, every alarm in my mind blaring. Darling? The word echoed in my head. Who the hell was this man to her? I spent the rest of the evening observing every interaction, every glance, every whisper. It was clear to me that there was something going on, and everyone in that room seemed to know it. People watched us, watched me, with pity in their eyes, like I was the last person to figure out a cruel joke. When we finally got home, I confronted Liz in the car. "What's going on between you and Chad?" I asked, keeping my voice as steady as I could. She brushed it off, called me paranoid, said Chad was just a coworker. But her tone was too calm, too practiced. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But that night, as she lay next to me in bed, pretending to sleep, I knew one thing for sure. I needed answers. And I wasn't going to stop until I got them. The days after that party were tense. Liz acted like everything was normal, like I had imagined the whole thing. She smiled, laughed at my jokes, and even cooked my favorite meals. But I couldn't shake the images from that night, the glances, the whispers, the way she had said, "I'm sorry, darling." It was eating me alive. I decided I needed the truth, and not just words. Words could be twisted, dismissed. I needed proof, something undeniable. So I did what any man in my position might do. I hired a private investigator. His name was David Carter, a no-nonsense guy who came highly recommended. I told him everything, laid it all out on the table, and asked him to find out if there was anything going on between Liz and Chad. David was efficient, and he didn't waste time. Within a week, he had started sending me updates. The first photos hit me like a punch to the chest. There she was, my wife, walking into a motel with Chad. They looked casual, comfortable, like this was routine. Another photo showed them kissing in the parking lot, completely oblivious to the world around them. I told myself to wait until David had everything before confronting Liz. I needed the full story. Over the next few weeks, the evidence piled up, more photos, video footage, even audio recordings. It was worse than I had imagined. They weren't just sneaking around during lunch breaks. This was a full-blown affair. There were recordings of Liz talking about their office-wife arrangement, laughing about how easy it was to hide. The hardest part was hearing her talk about me. "Albert would never suspect," she said in one clip, her voice light and carefree. "He's too busy with work to notice." That stung. She had underestimated me, written me off as some clueless fool. When David handed me the final report, I sat in my car outside his office for what felt like hours. I flipped through the pages, staring at the photos, reading the transcripts. The weight of it all settled on my shoulders. This wasn't just a mistake or a moment of weakness. Liz had been living a double life, and everyone around her knew. Everyone except me. That evening, I came home and acted normal. Liz greeted me with a smile, asked about my day, and went about her business like she had nothing to hide. I watched her closely, every move, every word. It was infuriating how good she was at pretending. The next morning, I decided it was time. Over breakfast, I placed the envelope with all the evidence on the table. "Liz," I started, keeping my voice calm, "you would never betray me, right?" She froze, her fork hovering midair. "Of course not," she said, her tone defensive. "Why would you even ask that?" Without a word, I pulled out the first photo and slid it across the table. She stared at it, her face draining of color. Then I laid down another and another. With each photo, her expression shifted from shock to panic. "Albert, this isn't what it looks like," she stammered, her voice trembling. "I don't love him. It's just physical. It doesn't mean anything." I leaned forward, my voice cold. "It means everything to me." Her excuses came pouring out after that. How it was just a fling, how she never stopped loving me, how she thought I would never find out. But none of it mattered. I had the proof I needed, and there was no going back. That moment, sitting at the table with the woman I had loved for 25 years, I felt something inside me shift. The trust was gone, shattered into pieces I knew could never be put back together. If finding out about Liz's affair wasn't bad enough, what happened next cut even deeper. After our confrontation at breakfast, things were tense in the house. Liz kept trying to apologize, trying to explain. But every word she said only made me angrier. It was a mistake, she claimed. It doesn't mean anything. A year-long affair, and she wanted me to believe it was meaningless. I needed space, so I decided to focus on work for a few days. But then Maria called. My daughter, my pride and joy, was always a bright spot in my life. So when her name popped up on my phone, I thought maybe this was the distraction I needed. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, trying to sound normal. But the moment she started talking, I knew something was wrong. "Daddy," she said hesitantly, "I just talked to Mom. She's really upset. She said you kicked her out of the house. What's going on?" My heart sank. I hadn't kicked Liz out, not yet anyway, but it was clear she had already started twisting the narrative. I took a deep breath and explained everything. I told Maria about Liz's affair, about Chad, and about how it had been going on for over a year. Her response? "Dad, it's not a big deal. I thought I misheard her." "Not a big deal?" I repeated. "Maria, your mother betrayed me. She lied to me for a year." She sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "Dad, it's the 21st century. People have affairs. It happens. Men do it all the time and no one makes a big fuss about it." "I never did that to your mother," I snapped. "I never betrayed her, not once." Her tone shifted then, defensive and almost condescending. "Well, maybe you should have. Maybe you wouldn't be so worked up about this. Dad, you need to let it go and let Mom come home. She's your wife and she loves you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own daughter was siding with her mother, acting like I was the villain for being hurt. It felt like a betrayal on top of a betrayal. But it got worse. "By the way," Maria added casually, "I know Chad. He's a great guy. Mom and I were talking, and we think he should come to the wedding." "What?" My voice was louder than I intended. "He's important to Mom," Maria said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "And honestly, I like him too. If Mom wants him there, he should be part of the day. Maybe he could even walk her down the aisle with you." I was done. "If Chad is at your wedding, Maria," I said, my voice cold, "then I won't be there." There was a pause, and then she said, "Dad, you're being ridiculous." "No," I replied firmly. "You want Chad there? Fine. Let him play father of the bride because I won't." I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking and my chest felt tight. I had always been there for Maria, always supported her, and now she was throwing me under the bus to defend her mother and some guy she barely knew. That night, Liz tried to talk to me again. She came into the bedroom, tears streaming down her face, and begged me to work things out. But then she had the audacity to add, "I want us to fix this, Albert, but I also want to keep seeing Chad. You need to accept that." I just stared at her, completely numb. "Liz," I said quietly, "you need to leave." She didn't, not yet anyway, but in that moment, something broke inside me. My wife, my daughter, they weren't the people I thought they were. And for the first time I realized I was on my own. By the time Liz told me she wanted to work things out while still keeping Chad in the picture, something inside me flipped. That was the moment I knew I was done. Not just with her, but with the entire life we had built together. Our marriage, our home, the routines, even the dreams, they were nothing but a facade now. But I wasn't going to walk away empty-handed. If Liz and Chad thought they could humiliate me and walk off scot-free, they were in for a surprise. I started planning in secret. Years of managing accounts had taught me how to think strategically, and this was no different. First, I needed to secure my finances. Liz may have been good at graphic design, but when it came to money, she left all of that to me. She had no idea how our investments were structured or how much of our assets were liquid. That gave me the upper hand. Step one was to move everything I could. I transferred a substantial chunk of our savings into an offshore account under a name she could never trace. Then I took out a loan against our house, a hefty one. Liz had always bragged to her friends about how we owned the house outright, but that was never true. Sure, we had paid off the original mortgage, but refinancing for investments was a common move for me. She just never bothered to ask. Once the loan was approved, I also borrowed against her BMW. It was worth about $45,000, and I managed to secure $40,000 against it. Every dime went straight into accounts she would never see. That debt? All in her name. I worked on this quietly for weeks, using every spare moment to finalize my plan. Meanwhile, I acted like I was moving past the betrayal. I told Liz we could try to fix things. She seemed relieved, even smug, like she had won. Little did she know, every day she spent at Chad's motel was another day I got closer to pulling the rug out from under her. At work, things were lining up perfectly. The company was undergoing a merger, and they offered me a buyout package worth over $500,000. I accepted it without hesitation and arranged for the funds to be wired directly to my offshore account. Then came the next piece, cutting off the wedding expenses. Maria's dream wedding? Cancelled. I called the planner, informed her that I wouldn't be paying for anything, and suggested Maria ask her office dad for help instead. The planner was stunned, but I didn't care. If Maria wanted to side with Liz and Chad, she could deal with the fallout. Finally, I needed Liz to sign off on some documents without realizing what they were. I created fake life insurance policies and convinced her they were part of a new company program. One night, after a few glasses of wine, I brought the papers to her and told her we needed to get them notarized. She was tipsy enough to agree without reading a word. Her signature sealed the deal. The whole process took about 2 months, but by the end of it, I was ready to disappear. The house, the car, the debts, they were her problem now. The bank would come knocking soon enough, but by then I would be long gone. The hardest part was keeping a straight face. Every morning I sat across from Liz at the breakfast table, listening to her talk about her plans for us. Every word out of her mouth was a reminder of how far she had fallen from the woman I once loved. But I kept my cool, nodding and smiling while quietly counting down the days. On the last day, I handed in my company badge, packed a bag, and walked out the door without looking back. By the time Liz realized what had happened, I would be a ghost. She thought she had played me, but she had no idea I had been 5 steps ahead the entire time. When I finally walked away, it felt like breathing fresh air after being trapped in a smoke-filled room. I was free, but I knew the storm was just beginning for Liz and everyone else who thought they could treat me like a fool. The first crack showed up a week after I left. The loan against the house went through, and the bank wasted no time reaching out to Liz. She was blindsided. For years, she had lived under the illusion that the house was fully paid off. Now there was a $2 million debt attached to it, and she had no idea how to handle it. The BMW? Same story. The payments started piling up, and without my income, Liz couldn't keep up. I imagine she called Chad for help, but from what I heard, he had his own problems. His wife found out about the affair, thanks to me, and filed for divorce. She took the house, most of their assets, and even got him fired from their advertising agency. Apparently, she was a major shareholder and pulled some strings. Chad went from being a hotshot sales rep to driving an old, beat-up car for a rideshare company. Meanwhile, Maria wasn't having the fairy tale ending she had hoped for either. After I cut off the wedding funds, I called William, her fiancé, and told him everything. I even shared recordings of Maria dismissing the affair as no big deal. William was devastated. He called off the engagement and left Maria to deal with the fallout. With no rich fiancé to support her and no father willing to bail her out, Maria moved in with Liz. They ended up in a 2-bedroom apartment in a rough part of town. From what I heard, the place was barely livable, but it was all they could afford after Liz lost the house and her car. I could have stopped there, but I wanted to make sure Liz understood the depth of her mistakes. I left copies of the affair's evidence with Chad's wife and Liz's boss. Her reputation at work crumbled, and she was eventually let go. Last I heard, she was working as a waitress at a roadside diner. As for me, I settled in Florida. A fresh start, warm weather, and no one to answer to but myself. I bought a truck and a travel trailer, both paid in cash and registered under my cousin's name. My finances were secure in offshore accounts, and I found a great job with one of the big companies down here. Every now and then I hear bits and pieces about Liz and Maria. They're struggling, no doubt about it, and Chad is just as miserable. But I don't feel sorry for them. They made their choices, and now they're living with the consequences. My life now? It's better than I ever imagined. I wake up every day with a clear mind, no lies, no drama. The sun is always shining, and the future feels wide open. I may have lost a marriage and a family, but I found something far more valuable: freedom. As I sit on the porch of my trailer, watching the Florida sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I find myself sifting through the emotions that have carried me to this moment. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have ever anticipated. Not just Liz's affair, but Maria's casual dismissal of it, as if my pain was some outdated notion, a relic of a bygone era. There are nights when I lie awake, the memories flooding back like an unrelenting tide, the way Liz's laughter used to light up our tiny college apartment, the pride in Maria's eyes when I taught her to ride a bike, the quiet moments when our family felt unbreakable. Those memories are now tinged with a bitter ache, a reminder of a life built on trust that was shattered beyond repair. I loved them both with everything I had, and a part of me will always carry that love, tucked away in a corner of my heart I rarely visit. But love doesn't mean forgiveness, not when the betrayal was so deliberate, so callous. There's a quiet anger that lingers, not the fiery rage that fueled my meticulous planning, but a steady undercurrent that reminds me never to let anyone diminish me again. Liz thought she could play me, that I'd remain the oblivious husband, too buried in work to notice her double life. Maria thought she could brush off my hurt, siding with her mother and a stranger over the father who'd always been there. They underestimated me, saw me as a means to an end rather than a man with his own worth. That realization stung, but it also lit a fire in me, a determination to reclaim my dignity, my autonomy, my life. Every step I took, from securing my finances to walking away, was a declaration that I would not be their fool. Yet beneath the anger there's a profound sadness for what was lost, not just the marriage or the family, but the man I used to be. I was the guy who believed in forever, who thought loyalty and love could weather any storm. That man is gone, replaced by someone harder, wiser, but perhaps a little less open to the world. I don't regret the choices I made. They were necessary to protect myself, to ensure I didn't walk away empty-handed from a life I'd poured my soul into. But I mourn the innocence I lost, the blind trust that let me believe in a perfect life that never really existed. I grieve for the moments with Maria that will never happen now. The father-daughter dance at her wedding, the quiet talks about her future. I wonder if she'll ever understand why I had to walk away, or if she'll always see me as the villain in her story. Still, in the midst of that sorrow, there's a fierce sense of liberation that anchors me. I've built a life on my own terms, free from the weight of lies and expectations. The open road, the warm Florida breeze, the simple joy of a sunset viewed from my porch, these are mine, earned through the pain and the fight. I've learned that freedom isn't just about walking away, it's about choosing yourself, even when it hurts. I think about Liz and Maria sometimes, about the struggles they're facing, and I feel a flicker of pity, but it's quickly overshadowed by the clarity of my own path. They made their choices, and I made mine. Their consequences are theirs to bear, just as my freedom is mine to cherish. As I look out at the horizon, I feel a quiet hope stirring within me. The scars of this betrayal will always be there, a reminder of the battles I fought and the life I left behind. But they're also proof of my resilience, of the strength it took to walk away and start over. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving, building a future that's honest, unencumbered, and entirely my own. I don't know what lies ahead, but for the first time in years, I'm excited to find out. The weight of the past is still there, but it's lighter now, overshadowed by the promise of new beginnings. I've found peace in this new life, and that peace, hard-won and fiercely guarded, is worth more than any house, any car, or any dream I left behind.